This is Michael Swank coming to you from Art Gallery Studios, and this is the Bureau of Queer Art podcast. Today we're going to be speaking with Kate Wilhite of Salt Lake City, Utah. She's an ex-Mormon living in Salt Lake City as a queer member of the community there, and she has been working on this project inside of the residency for a little bit over a year, been part of the residency for 2 years, and we love Kate and we love her work. Kate is a very unique person with a wonderful spirit, but at a very young age in her 20s, she's able to focus for over a year on a project of 78 tarot cards in watercolor at poster scale. And we have shown several versions, different parts of this experiment and project throughout the last year here in the gallery and online with Artsy. And I am completely enamored with her style and her sense of what community is. And I hope that when you hear her speak about her work, that you connect to it also. You can purchase her tarot deck directly through the artist and receive a tarot reading through her as well by contacting her through her Instagram. Today we're going to be talking about the queer tarot that she worked on in the residency, but also if you purchase our magazine, the Bureau of Queer Art, through Amazon Blurb or our website, artgallerystudios.com, you'll have access to extra content. And we'll have posted some interviews that we did with her previously at the beginning and the middle of the project and here at the end, which is what you're going to be listening to. We also have some extra content of her visiting Mexico City, being a part of our exhibitions here in the residency, working with other artists and things. So all that is available to you if you purchase the print edition of our magazine so that you can follow along in the interview and see her images and have a fuller experience. But today, we meet with Kate Wilhite, the Queer Revolution.
Hello, who is this? Who is it?
Yanis.
Okay, Yanis. So we are starting our Kiki this evening. We're going to be speaking with Kate Wilhite. I see it seems like 400 Wilhite names in the list here. Do you come from a large family, Kate?
Yes.
And we're also broadcasting on our YouTube channel as well, so we might have some people from there. I won't be checking for questions from the YouTube channel, only from this paid event. So thank you all for coming tonight and supporting the artist of PRPG MX, that's Proyectos Residencia, Proyectos Galeria, Mexico. We have been here for 4 years as on October 1st, as I am told by my Facebook memories. Because if it's not in Facebook memories, I don't remember that it actually happened, apparently. But we started the residency program 4 years ago on October 1st. And we had in this space, which is my studio, 4 other artists who came with their work, and we had a huge party. And that was sort of the beginning of the residency thing. And then all the artists started to send their friends when they were coming to town, and they would stay in our spaces and make work and stuff. And we'd have another party, and it sort of developed, and then a year later it became a residency, and then we got hit by the pandemic, which was terrible for us because we obviously couldn't have people here. So we continued to try to produce shows, but we kept getting canceled because of the pandemic. So this was actually our gallery. We converted the residency, which was empty, into a gallery, and we grew from there. And now we have more spaces, which I would normally show you, but we're under construction right now. So we have new floors going in. The walls are all getting painted and the lighting is getting updated. So it's going to be a pretty dramatic shift. Kate, you were here in January, February, right?
Mm-hmm.
This year. So you got the opportunity to see it. That was the second show that we'd had in that particular space. You were here for at least a week, right?
Yeah, it was about 10 days, I think.
Yeah, yes. And your work was very well received. And we have continued to show your work. We actually have 10 of your queer tarot paintings here in the gallery right now. So that's pretty cool. We're very happy to have them. We're going to be presenting them. We're presenting some of them in an upcoming show on October the 15th in Casa Cultura in Nesa in the north of the city. Here we have these big community type centers where they do art and classes, and then all your government services are there and everything. And so every zone has one. And we produce shows in those as well. They're really good for visibility and bringing new audiences in. So we're very excited to have Kate's work with that. And then we have a show opening on October 22nd. Oh my gosh. It seems like very far away, but I know that it's going to come around the corner really, really fast. And then, of course, Clavo Movimiento will be happening at the beginning of November, which is an art fair here in Mexico City that we participated in the spring, and Kate was a part of that as well. You sort of get the impression, Kate, that we've been working with you for a little while. How long have you been in residency?
I believe since the beginning of 2021.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah, like January, February 2021.
Right. And I remember you had, I think your first project that you did with us was a choose your own adventure book. Mm-hmm. And then we kept like wanting to produce it in the streets and like put it up as stickers around and let people go around and things like that. But it never really came to fruition. And then you started in on this new project, the Queer Tarot project that we're going to talk about tonight. So I'm super excited about it. And just so you all know, we're going to talk for a little bit and then we're going to open up the floor. And if you have questions, you'll be able to interact and ask questions. And then once, if there's no questions, I guess, we'll just continue to talk and, entertain everybody. I do have a banjo here somewhere, and I have two dogs who are trained to do, no, they're not trained to do any tricks at all. They're actually just sleeping right now. So don't worry about that. They're not going to help us with anything, Kate.
Bummer.
Bummer. Kate, you're in Salt Lake City, Utah.
Currently, I am actually in Seattle, but I am based in Salt Lake City, Utah.
Oh, what are you doing in Seattle?
Well, I spent the last month working in Texas for one of my jobs, and I needed a break. And so I came to Seattle. I tried to post up in the library, and they kicked me out because I'm not a student. So now I'm just in a bookstore in the children's section because it's the least populous section in the university bookstore.
Right.
But I'm just in Seattle having a little time to look at some art and make some art.
Oh, that's really cool. I lived in Seattle for 4 years. And my first gallery was in Pioneer Square. It was called, oh my God, what was it called? Oh my gosh. I can't remember now. I don't even remember. It had a big bank safe in it. I remember that, and it had something to do with the safe. Just way too long ago. So this was, actually, I'm pretty sure it was before you were born. So, so don't worry about it. Anyway, so good. Seattle's a great place to be. Is it cold and rainy yet, or is it good weather?
It is perfect temperature and rainy.
Okay. Super. Yeah. And we're here in Mexico City. It's just been dark and kind of gray. And I actually wore a scarf and a hat today because it was 68 degrees outside. So, I'm really suffering here. I'm just so much suffering. Anyway, so you've been with the residency now for, almost 2 years, coming up on 2 years. You started the Queer Tarot series. When did you start the Queer Tarot?
I started it last May.
Last May, okay. And how many pieces are in your tarot set right now?
There are 78 pieces in the set, and I have painted 60 of them.
Oh my gosh, man, you are like, that's insane. Because these aren't like small paintings. These are like,
no, these are big boys.
Yeah. So, this is the way you work, right? This is your thing. You like to have a series or something to work on that's a longer term project. Can you explain what that is about for you?
Yeah, for me, I like to be able to know what my next painting is going to be because I want to always be painting. Mm-hmm. I like to be able to plan a couple of paintings ahead because I tend to get so excited about a painting that I finish it in a 48-hour span of time, painting for 20 of those hours.
Right.
And so it's good for me to be able to plan ahead. And I like big series because it's fun to incorporate similar like aesthetic like decisions, you know, the same patterns, the same things, and like have these fit together aesthetically in a group, but also grow as an artist. And I like to have that balance of like, I'm getting better each painting, but each painting still fits with the first and second and third, you know.
Sure.
Which I think is a fun thing to do.
Well, and I mean, you really push my boundaries with watercolor. Like I mean, I think I probably said this to you when you first started. I'm like, I never really took watercolor seriously as a media for fine art until I met you. So that congratulations, you've changed my mind completely. But I mean, it's very interesting to work with that media, which, I mean, it has sort of a hobby aspect to it, but I'm curious if you could talk a little bit about the way that you use watercolors, because the effects that you're creating are very different.
Yeah, I like to, well, I have never been like traditionally trained in watercolor. I started painting in acrylic in high school and then oil in college. And I took a semester off of school and moved to Denver. And I was hanging out in a lot of coffee shops there. And so I found that watercolor and markers were really easily portable. So it was awesome for me to be able to use these watercolors, and the markers I was using kind of the same process,
Sure.
building up layers from the bottom to the top. And it became my focus while I was there, even though I had access to an oil studio. I was painting some big oil paintings. I spent more and more of my time outside of the studio just doing watercolors on the go.
Right.
And when I came back to Salt Lake City, I started doing watercolor full time in my studio practice, making really big paintings. And so the first thing that drew it to me was that it was portable and I didn't have to breathe in toxic fumes, find a ventilated space. But I really loved the process of building something up from the bottom, and the way that the colors mixed was so like beautiful and like pure to me. It was a fascinating experience just to paint them because I never knew what it was going to look like. I loved the aspect of it's a collaborative piece between like me and the water, because I can do so much to control the color and control the pigment, but the water is going to do its own thing as well.
Right.
And the challenge of that was really appealing to me. And the other thing that really drew me to watercolor was the push and the pull of like organic versus inorganic. I love using like the organic shapes that the water makes, but coming on top with like patterns and lines, with like, you know, a tiny little liner paintbrush with more saturated pigment on it to make really fine, thick lines that are not, you know, natural. These patterns that I put on top of my more organic backgrounds was something that I couldn't get the same effect with oil, because I could never get it to be as organic as I could get watercolor to be.
Can you talk about the way that you're using light? Because in most cases with watercolor, light is represented with, well, more white, and I don't see almost any white in your space at all. So can you talk about?
So for me, light and color are more interchangeable. I love the idea that like a color on someone's like face can be like its own light source and light the whole painting. Color to me, like pure color, pure saturated color, has the same effect as like a bright ray of sunshine. And so I like to explore that in my paintings, where it's like, is the light source, the sun, is the light source coming from a window across, or is the light source its own, the figure in the painting. And I like to go off of like the colors that I see. There's like colors that are, I'm looking at a gray wall right now, but I can see some green, I can see some yellow, I can see some blue. And I would exaggerate that in my painting. And where I find the most pure colors is where I like to kind of imagine its own light source.
And the colors that you're using they're very vibrant colors. I mean, is this, because I do the same thing in my own work. And I really love using vibrant colors, because I'm like, why paint realism? I have realism every day in my life. I don't need to spend more time with it. I love these vibrant colors and the way that they work together. You're also using nighttime light as well, too. Yes.
Mm-hmm. So a lot of my light is like natural light, and a lot of my light is artificial. I have like little light boxes and like clamp lights with different colored light bulbs that I'll place around and create a lot of artificial light sources.
Mm-hmm.
I like to come at a figure with at least 2 different light sources with different temperatures of light. And so I have more light sources to go from, and then I exaggerate it from there.
Sure.
And so like even working like outside in the broad daylight, so like the first image on the screen with the pink background, you can see the pink on her hand in the foreground of the painting is kind of like, it's very lit up.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a shadow, but I wanted it to like have more of a light, and the shadow is being like reflected off of like a car that was next to the figure. So we see like the light of the sun, but the shadow had its own sort of like tint because of its own light source. And like incorporating these light sources that are not necessarily like part of the picture. It's like, okay, this background isn't even incorporated in the painting. Finding the light and the colors that are like authentic to the image in the moment is what I like to find.
Sure. It's very it's just it has a positivity to it, I think, an energy to it that really radiates from the work. And I know that you, within your own personal life, you've gone through some struggles in the last couple of years, and I'm just curious about how the process of doing the painting and the colors that you're choosing are a reflection of and a deflection of some of those aspects of your personal life.
Yeah, so for me, color is something that I find a lot of joy in. I find a lot of pleasure in color. I just love color. Color is something that really leads a lot of things in my life. And for example, the Choose Your Own Adventure painting series that I did, I was painting nightmares, like images from memories of my dreams, but my dreams are all nightmares. And so there's these kind of like terrible emotions captured in this image with like beautiful, vibrant colors.
Mm-hmm.
And I found a lot of emotional release in doing that, and exploring how I can use like the colors that like bring me a lot of joy and bring me a lot of pleasure to explore things that are, scary and like harmful in, positive and negative ways. Like color exists like throughout all of this.
Right.
And even in like the most terrible moments, I can still find like beautiful colors. And so that is something that I like to exaggerate in, in both good and bad ways. Like for example, the tower painting in my tarot deck, it's about severe change. That's neither good or bad. It's just, it is what it is. It's monumental, but it's not good or bad. And you can find good things from it. You can find bad things from it. It's going to hurt you in ways that you don't understand because change hurts, but it's going to give you more opportunities than you could ever imagine, because the more something breaks down, the more opportunities you have for an infinite change.
Sure. And then like accepting that there's a certain element of pain within change allows you to also understand that it's temporary, and it's a choice. You could look at it on the dark side or the light side of it. Obviously there are elements of pain that are, well, it's just pain. It's just, you have to go through it, right? When you stub your toe, you have to wait for the sensation to go away, but it doesn't last forever. Obviously emotions are different, but so it's a good opportunity for us to talk about this series, the Queer Tarot. Can you, tell us where this is coming from for you, and the significance of working on a project like this using the tarot, and we'll dive into the symbolism and everything as we go along.
Okay. So the idea to do a tarot project had been kind of like, people had been like suggesting it to me for a while, because I had been doing some bigger series, and tarot's really big right now. It's a trendy thing. And I was like, I don't want to do it because it's so trendy. Like, I'm not riding the trend. I'm making art that is meaningful to me. And
Sure.
My sort of thesis at the time that I was working through, this is in 2020, I was exploring queer identity within myself and my community. And then I was completely cut off from my community. I started doing a lot of like self-portraits, like I was wearing wigs, I was doing different personas. And I was like, how can I, express this like queer identity that I'm learning about through my community, but only through myself. And that was really hard for me. And I'm like, I want to start taking pictures of other people as soon as it's like safe enough to start, doing that again. So that was on the back of my mind. And then the other thing that I was thinking a lot about with my art was that it was not as relatable to people, because it was like a self-portrait of myself. It was a self-portrait of, a persona of me. And I was thinking like, I want to paint people who are being authentically themselves.
Right.
Like I love painting, like me in a wig doing like a pinup pose. It's really fun. And it's, it does feel authentic in a way, because it's me being myself, which is, I love attention, and
the best, you're always there. Around. You're always there, right? You're there. Cindy Sherman built a career on
exactly
focusing on herself as the subject in an other context. So,
but the real thing that was like missing to me was, how can I get people to want to relate this to themselves?
Sure.
Who want to look at this and be like, okay, well, how can I explore my own identity through this? Specifically, how can I explore my own queer identity? And so when I finally started listening to everyone around me that was like, do a tarot deck, I was kind of like weighing the pros and cons, because that's a big project to
sure.
And I'm not a quitter. I'm like, if I'm going to start a project, I'm going to finish it. And so like, I want to know that this is a good way to spend my time. And one of the big things that really stuck out to me was that people are going to look at each of these cards and relate it to themselves and be like, for example, on the screen right now, we've got the Knight of Cups, the the Five of Pentacles, and the Queen of Swords. And so people can look at this and be like, okay, how do I relate to the Knight of Cups? This is a card about seeking out love, seeking out connection, seeking out like the flowing of emotion, like putting in the work to receive the love that you want and need. And this is something that anyone can relate to, regardless of gender, regardless of sexuality, regardless of, you know, how they identify. But when I make this deck, I think about specifically the queerness of this, where it's like, who is like traditionally someone who seeks and someone who is sought, you know, who is, and like, how can you find where you feel happy in what role? Where can people, who are you giving your love to? You know, where I live in a community where it's like, I tell my friends I love them all the time. And that feels really good to me to be able to say. There's a lot of people who maybe it would feel good to tell their friends they love them, but that's not the social, you know, thing that works for their gender, their sexuality. And, you know, just like in very small ways, I can relate this to like queerness. And then there's like a very deep thing that it would take me 20 minutes to talk about each card, about like how I relate it to my own queer identity. And eventually there's going to be like a booklet that's going to go along with the deck that will do that.
What's the booklet to tell your story, or just to help people use the deck?
So there's going to be two booklets. I'm printing the deck, and I'm hoping, like, if everything works out, I've got like a Kickstarter going and stuff. If everything works out, it'll be printed by December, ready to be shipped by December, and that will come with like a little basic reading of tarot. It'll be like, okay, the Five of Pentacles is somebody outside of a church, and they want, but they can't get in. You know, they want to be in. There's light inside. The church is supposed to be welcoming, but they can't get in.
Right.
And the idea is like, can they not get in because they're not asking, or are they asking and they're being rejected? And then you look at your own situation. So that's what would be in the first like booklet. And then my next big project after I get it printed is to make a different booklet more about my own experience. I'll include like sketches, like reference photos, what I was considering like visually, technically, like thematically while I was painting each of these pieces.
I mean, this is going to have a life.
Later.
This whole thing will have a life well beyond. I mean, first of all, I mean, there's the originals, which I was like looking at today, and I was just like, oh, I'm so fortunate to, like, I get to see these every day in my life. You know, they're quite beautiful. I mean, these images on the screen are beautiful, but to live with them is very beautiful. And then to like have the ability to actually purchase the deck itself, and then, you know, have some educational components so that if you're not familiar with it, you know, you're going to be able to, you know, find your way through that experience if you want to as well. I mean, this is going to have a life of its own for, you know, ever. I mean, it's, you know, that's the power of it, of what you've done here by creating something that could be displayed in a gallery, but could also be held in your hand and sold, you know, at a different price point, and allow people. Talk to me about community, because this is a community project. What you're saying is all about the spirit of community. Talk to me about this community.
Yeah, so I consider myself a community-based artist. I paint people in my community, and I'm painting pictures about my community. It's an interesting thing to me, because I think like, okay, this is what Salt Lake City looks like. And this is what Salt Lake City looks like to me, because this is my community in Salt Lake. Not everybody in Salt Lake, you know, has tattoos. Not everybody in Salt Lake, you know, is queer. But like, to me, this embodies my community in the way that they authentically express themselves. And so that was like an important aspect to me of just like getting different models, because every model would have a different form of self-expression. But also like talking with the models about like, what does this card mean to you,
Right.
before and while making it, is an important thing to me, because I feel like it is a collaboration. I feel like so much of my own identity I learned about by seeing the people in my community live authentically. And so I feel like the best way to represent them is to like talk to them about like, okay, what is like, who are you? What makes you happy? What do you seek out in life that like, you know, your values, how do you feel pleasure? Like, how do you find happiness in your life? And how do you take up space? And obviously all of these paintings are very influenced by my own style, my own, you know, everyone has chain link fence stuff. You know, we got a chain link fence in like half of the paintings, to like tie everything together. But finding people's like authentic styles was an important part of it to me. People always ask like, hey, what do you want me to wear when we take the reference photos? And so I say, dress in something that makes you feel hot and cool. Something that just makes them feel like, you know, big ballin' energy.
Right.
And I say like, find a silhouette that makes you feel really cool. I'll add a pattern. And if you're like, hey, it's always been my dream to be painted like this, I'll be like, okay, like that's how you want to be seen. That's how you want people to perceive you. This is a collaborative piece. I want you to take up space in the way that you want to take up space.
Well,
and so like working with them is a big thing.
Well, that's the spirit of the word queer. At least as we define it here, and of course the way that you're defining it too, is this ideal that it's like, okay, queer is you get to come to the table and say who you are, and then we accept that that's who you are. Now, I mean, I'll say accepting that's who you are doesn't mean, you know, oh, welcome into my life and here's my car and my house or something, you know, not like that kind of acceptance. It's just like, yeah, no, you get to be who you are in this world, what makes you happy and comfortable without harming other people. You know, it's just it's who you are, authentically yourself. And that gets to change as well. So can you tell us, in your experience in the process of doing this tarot deck, how you've changed?
Yeah, so I have done a lot of growing in every way. At the beginning of this project, I felt like I was like really focused on my art, focused on moving forward. Oh no, my headphones are dying.
Oh no.
Oh no, one sec.
Oh no. Technology. Why do you betray
Can you hear
us?
me through this one ear?
Oh yeah, no, we can hear you.
Okay, well let's hope this works, and then when this one dies,
We'll just go to hand signals.
I'll just switch it out to the other one.
Okay.
Okay, technology. I'm so bad at this.
It's
But
all right.
so I last year, just over like a year and a week ago, I started a treatment program for my eating disorder. This is when I was working on the Hanged Man card. Was the card I started the day I started treatment. And it's a card about stagnation and consequences. And it's a card about like, sometimes you have to stop and you have to wait and you have to pay the price for the things that you have done. And that was exactly what I was experiencing in my life. I felt like stuck. I was like, I can't do anything. I'm like not working. I'm not painting. It took me 6 weeks to paint this painting, which I mean, for the size, I do understand like that's probably kind of normal. and the detail.
Not for
But
you.
for me, it is very abnormal. And it was really fascinating to see like, oh, this is like very much aligning with my like my journey and sort of the stopping to reassess where I'm heading in the direction of my values or in the direction away from my values, and realizing that like my value, like the biggest thing that I prioritize in my life is my art. And I thought that I was living towards that, but I wasn't. And realizing, all right, I have to do some different things in order to make the art that I want to be making. And I have to take care of my body, and I have to prioritize, you know, my eating, and I have to prioritize other things.
Mm-hmm.
And so after that card,
Oh.
Can you hear me in this one?
I think we're just getting your computer speaker, but we can still hear you. It's clear. When you're that close, we can hear you.
Okay. Perfect. I'm just going to charge these then.
Yeah, let them charge. Give them juice.
Okay.
There you go. Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
It's muted.
Oh, you're muted? Oh, it probably muted you when you switched off your.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
I can hear you. Perfect. So after working on that card and continuing forward, I started really thinking about like, where does this card fit within my specific journey towards my values? Because the tarot, the major arcana, follows the journey of the Fool towards their reaching their goals, their final destination in their journey. And it was really, I don't know, it's kind of creepy the way it all lined up with my life in so many ways. But I felt like specifically making the choices to focus on my health helped me focus on my art in a completely different way, because I realized how important my art was to my holistic health. That like, if I'm not painting, I'm sad. If I spent this last month working one of my jobs, which is like it's an art job. It's a loosely art job. It was more manual labor this month, but it's an art job. But like, not painting and just like making different types of art, thinking about art, talking about art, but not painting, 6 hours a day. I was like, this is tragic. This is the hardest thing I've ever done.
Right.
And so to be able to realize like the way that I can be happy is to make art. And the way that I need to do that is to care for my health, and finding things that, you have to pay the consequences. I have to stop making art for a little while, and I have to take a break, doing those things helped me realize like exactly where my priorities should be. And it's really helped me focus my life in a lot of ways.
So I want to go towards an obvious question here, because I'm sure, and then we'll transition into opening the floor for questions as well. You're ex-Mormon, or?
Yes.
And you're queer, and
yes.
you're in Salt Lake City.
Yes.
Which is a primarily Mormon community. You see where I'm going with this. I'm like, this. Yes. I mean, this expression has some uniqueness to it because of these elements as well. So can you talk about how the context of and what you're doing affects what you are actually producing and why you're doing it?
Yeah, for sure. I feel like I don't often think about my like ex-Mormon identity,
Sure.
because like I stopped going to church when I was 17 as soon as I moved out of my parents' house. I tried it for a little while after that and officially like got my records removed in like 2015 or 2016. But there's so much about that aspect of, you know, my whole childhood, my whole upbringing, and the culture around me that affects me in so many ways. And just the way that like Salt Lake City is, where like Utah is like the hub of Mormons. Provo, Utah is like what people outside of Salt Lake kind of think Salt Lake is, which is like the Mormon city. And then Salt Lake City is sort of the capital of the counterculture. So people who feel like they maybe don't fit in outside of Salt Lake City, in Utah and, you know, Arizona, Colorado, Idaho, Wyoming, other places, they come to Salt Lake City to express themselves and to find community. And so like the culture around us really shapes who we are and how we express ourselves. But even just being raised Mormon, it changes the way that I express myself, because I was told for so long like what I could wear, what I couldn't wear, how I could do my hair, how many piercings I could have in my ears. And that was so hard for me. That was harder for me than like, you know, waking up for early morning seminary.
Sure.
Just to be like, not be able to express myself the way that I wanted. And
well, you've clearly surpassed that, that barrier.
Exactly.
So if the I mean, so part of what you're saying is a response to or a reaction to the experiences, but I think part of what I'm thinking as well is that your ideal of community and the way that you form this project is also very much informed by the positive aspects of your Mormon experience too. Can you talk a little bit about that?
For sure. I mean, there are so many positive things about Mormonism. Obviously, I mean, there's so many Mormons there wouldn't be if there weren't positive things. And one of the hardest parts about leaving the church for me was losing that sense of community, because my whole life was like about that. Like my whole community was the Mormon church. And specifically things like communal singing. Like I don't sing with people anymore. I mean, I'll sing with my friends in my house or like in the car, but things like that, that it was like, I used to go be with people and we would sit in a room together and we would sing songs about feeling peace. And like, that was a really beautiful thing.
Sure.
And I have been able to find community with people who also loved and miss that aspect, you know, people who have similar experiences with feeling ostracized by the church, understanding where they felt included and being like, where can we find a balance, you know? And so I feel like so many of my friends who have, you know, been through this similar, you know, backgrounds, we all have been affected by the culture around us in good and bad ways. And we found that with all of the good things and all of the bad things about specifically the Mormon church, it's not going to accept us for our queerness. And so we are going to take the things that we love about it, leave the things that we don't love about it, and make our own queer community where we can have this community similar, taking, you know, traditions from our childhoods and the way we were raised, but building it with our other traditions of our, you know, other people who have come before us, our, you know, queer brothers and sisters before us, other cultures, other, ways of living, and make our own communities based on the positive things from all of these cultures that may have pushed us out.
Sure. I mean, I in your work, there's a thread, a line of strength through everything. And, I think it's very easy for people to discount religious experiences and the response being negative towards it. When I lived in San Francisco, it was during Prop 8, and I had moved from Riverside, San Bernardino, California, where there's this huge Mormon and Latter-day Saint community. And so I knew, I'd come to know lots of Mormons in a very meaningful way, and discovered, despite my perceptions of what that would be and how they would accept me as a queer individual and stuff, I did not have that issue with these people. And then when I went to San Francisco, I was this is at the Art Institute in San Francisco, and I was with my colleagues, and we were making all these protest signs and everything. And then we go outside, and half the signs were like anti-Mormon slurs and things. And I would walk up to people and I'd be like, but do you know any Mormons? I'm like, it's just, it's this whole thing of a generalization, and I was offended by it. I was like, well, but I know Mormons who support who you are. And, and I don't see this as the main thread, even though it was, some element of the Mormon church that was funding, the Prop 8 thing. So, so I understand, but I think I guess my point is a lot more complex.
For sure.
The experiences are really important. I grew up in an Irish Catholic family. So for me, community was a huge part of it. The church, the central aspect of the church that I identified with was the community aspect, where people came together and supported one another. And, and there were all these elements of social and everything. I mean, the church stuff, I was just like, okay, whatever. I'm like, these are really interesting allegories, very interesting stories. And I take them quite seriously in that sense, as these are things that we could use as guide points in our life, and try to be better people, because there's certainly enough opportunity and people out there showing us differently. So, try to do well, try to do something good for the world. So, and the aspect of it that I think is really important is the ability to sort of go outside of yourself and not make yourself the central character in every story. So I think that's very positive too. And clearly that has affected the work that you do. I mean, clearly it's there, and the spirit of which you come to the residency as well. I mean, you've been with us for almost 2 years, so and participated at different levels throughout the 2 years and stuff too. So I've witnessed it myself. I'm just so joyful about the work that you produce and the way that you do it, and your openness and your sharing of your stories, and the way that you present yourself so professionally within this context of your artwork. And I know many artists who would be jealous of your ability to focus. I hate to ask this because I don't want it to become about like an age thing, but how old are you?
I just turned 25 last month.
25. I mean, when I was 25, it was I could not have focused this much. Clearly, I mean, that would have been sort of a minor miracle. So you're doing really good. And I always say, like, the hardest part is just learning to take care of yourself. So, and making sure that you're actually available to make work. A lot of that is the stuff outside of the studio, and you've really owned your own. You have agency over your own health, and you understand the connection of your mental and physical health to your studio, and your desire to produce work motivated you to take care of yourself, which I think is beautiful, a beautiful thing. I am going to open up the floor to people to ask questions. What I'll ask you to do is to type that you want to ask a question into the chat window, and I'll call on you from the conversation in the chat. So if you go to the bottom of your screen, you'll see a little chat icon down there. If you would like to ask a question, please, go ahead and just type me or I have a question into the thing. If you don't want to turn on your video, you don't have to. If you want to just type the question and I'll ask it, I can do that as well. But we'll just continue talking until people chime in there and see what happens. So, all right. So you have, okay, amazing work, Kate. And thank you. Where did you learn to read the tarot?
So I have only been studying tarot since I started this project.
Mm-hmm.
I started by just like each card that I was learning about, or each card that I was painting, I would start learning about it. I would do research from different areas, find different summaries of like, oh, this is what this card means to this person. It means this to this person. And I started just like going card by card as I was making them. And as I got faster at painting them, I was like, okay, well, I like want to learn more about this as a whole. And so I've really only been studying it for about a year and a half. I've been reading books. There's a book called The Mystics of the Tarot. And I've been studying the original Rider-Waite tarot book,
Mm-hmm.
which is interesting to me because it's more about divination than about self-reflection. And to me, tarot, I see it as more of a tool for self-reflection. And even though I'm using the Rider-Waite card designs as an inspiration, I'm doing it less based on the divination.
Sure. Becca is asking, you talked about how you had a very personal experience painting the Hanged Man as you began your recovery. Is there an image that feels particularly special to you? Do you have a favorite?
Okay, I have a lot of favorites, but I think my favorite is the Star card, which was in a show in Mexico City in February.
Oh, yes.
And it's a card about the light. You're able to see the light at the end of the tunnel, and you're not quite there, but you have the kind of hope that you will reach the end because you can see the light, you can feel the light, and it's a reminder to nurture yourself or find someone who can nurture you so that you can continue your journey.
Mm-hmm.
And I painted that as I was getting a lot healthier in my recovery, as I was getting more on track. And it was a reminder to myself that like, okay, like I'm kind of doing this. I'm kind of doing okay now.
Right.
And as I started to really nurture myself and seek out people who could help nurture me, it was about 2 months between the time I painted that and when it went to Mexico City for the show in February. And to see my growth from the time I painted it until the time it was displayed was just another reminder to myself of just like nurturing myself day by day is helping me make the art that I want to make. And I'm getting closer and closer to my goals as I do that.
And in the span of the recovery that you're going through, I'm sure there's been moments where you faltered. And then is it the art that motivates you to sort of return back into a healthier mindset then too, or?
Yeah, for sure. It's a reminder like every day that I need to be energized enough to focus on painting.
Mm-hmm.
If I have the fuel, I can paint for 14 hours straight. And if I don't have the fuel, I will like putter out after like 20 minutes and I'll be like, okay, I need to be taking care of myself. I need to eat more. I need to, you know, take some time to prepare, you know, to dive into this. And being that art is my number one priority, I have to balance, you know, money. I need to be able to have enough money that I can still, you know, survive. My health, I need to be able to be healthy enough that I can make my art. Balancing all of these things is easier, knowing that art is the final goal.
Sure. Yeah, I think that's very, your perspective is very wise. And I'm sure it comes from the experience of, you know, moments where you couldn't produce and needed to find a way to re-energize, to reconnect with things. Jana says, so you're nearing finishing up the tarot project. Do you have an ideal of what you want to paint next?
Okay, that is a good question.
That's a scary thing, right?
It is a scary thing.
Because you've been on this project for a while, so it's.
Yeah, I want to start doing more. I think honestly, I'm gonna spend 2 months just sketchbooking. I'm gonna step away from the big pieces because it's so much easier for me to experiment in my sketchbook.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I need to get out of the tarot mindset so that I can break boundaries in different ways.
Sure.
Get out of this, you know, series aesthetic. And so I'm planning on making a bunch of sketchbooks. I like to make my own sketchbooks with my favorite paper so that it's right.
Sure.
I'm really particular, but I'm ready to make a bunch of sketchbooks and just paint on the go in different places, get lots of different inspiration, visually and, like, you know, emotionally as well.
Oh, we are going to have to come back to Mexico City. I mean,
oh, for sure.
I mean, it's made for that. I mean, it's just like, it's a cauldron of like constant motion and change. So it's a really good place to come and discover new things and colors and textures. And
so many good colors. Yeah.
I'm so sorry that the cafe down the street that you spent time at here just closed last week. I was like,
oh, tragic.
So sad. Such a beautiful Instagram environment.
True.
We're coming towards the end. Does anybody have any other questions? I'm looking at the chat window right now, so if anything comes in. We're in the middle of reconstructing the gallery right now. So the floors were all ripped out and new floors are going in, and you know, Anna from our residency, she along with a small group of women have rented the side space where your solo show was presented, this last series of shows in the summer. So they'll have a printmaking studio there, this another studio space above, and then they'll have the flexibility to go into the gallery space for their classes so that they can spread out and everything. So it's going to be a really beautiful thing. So when you come, you'll get the opportunity, you know, to, you know, maybe mix some, you know, mono printing and watercolors and things like that. That'll be a lot of fun. And of course that will be available to everyone else as well. We have a sewing, self-portrait sewing class, a fine art sewing class that's coming up on Saturday, starting in October too. I'm really trying to expand a little bit more of the community involvement in terms of using the space, because it just drives me crazy when the space is sitting empty. Galleries are so like, it's like there's all this dead space and dead time in galleries. And I'm just like, no, it's space. Like there has to be a way to activate it more and allow other people to come in and stuff. So, you know, there's a lot of really cool things happening at the moment. And a little, maybe slightly stressful. I mean, just, you know, having people pounding and removing tiles and things. So I've been showing you Kate's Instagram profile so that you can connect with her there if you're not already connected with her. This is the gallery residency Instagram. So you can always keep up with us here. There's this very strange thing that happened. We had the Gay Men's Chorus perform here at the end of our queer summer show. And we posted a video of the Gay Men's Chorus. I don't know if it's gonna, I don't know how far down it is in here. And that video is, there's so many screens open on my, to control these meetings. It's hard to get to it. Okay, which video? Oh, it's this one. Look at that, 28.4K. 28.4K likes. It's now over 800,000 views. It'll be at 100,000 by the end of October. I'm quite certain of it. And for a while it was just slamming. So there's this weird thing that's happening. And then of course you can find Kate's work in our profile at Artsy. It's just artsy.net/PRPGMX. And she's one of our represented artists, so you can find the work there. We have 10 of her pieces here in Mexico City, which we are sending one out to a show. We have an art fair coming up with Kate's work and stuff too. So we're gonna, Kate, we're gonna be promoting your tarot deck like big time. So we need to put a video at the exhibition to show, like an advertisement or something, 30 seconds.
For sure.
We have to put something together really quickly for that. And then we'll have our big Halloween party on October 22nd. So I think you should come down, Kate. I mean, and what you should do is you should just dress like, like a straight-laced accountant or something.
Yes. Just a normal.
just a normal, I just got off my job. I'm coming in here thinking about having a beer, Well, I am super appreciative of your participation in the residency and the spirit that you add to things, and you're so much a part of like what we do here and the ethos of the way we think about things. So it's always wonderful to have you in the group, and I hope that you'll come back into the online residency again soon. This video, I'll send it out to all the people who are sitting here. I'll send you a link for YouTube so that you can watch it again and turn on subtitles or turn off subtitles if you want to. We have some Spanish speaking people in our audience tonight. Hola, buenas noches. Hola, Alex. We'll have that available so that you can share that with people, but we also hope that you'll share Kate's work and the things that she's doing with the residency and stuff too. And sometimes we're all like, oh, it's so hard, I can't really afford to buy art right now or something. Kate, you do a fantastic job of creating accessible pieces for people, and you do commissions and things too. So I think that's really important to note. But also it's like liking and sharing, particularly sharing the work of other artists and things that you like, is super helpful, because it's very hard to break through the clutter out there. But we're so happy to have you, and thank you, Kate, for taking the time to be with us tonight.